What if time travel was possible? It started with a mistake. A particle accelerator in Finland, late one rainy evening, ran a calibration test on a newly configured magnetic loop. The pulse lasted 0.0003 seconds. The readout showed a spike in temporal displacement. A particle had arrived before it had been sent. At first, the team thought it was an error, a glitch in the equipment. But when they repeated the test the next night and observed the same result, everything changed. Time travel, long the dream of philosophers and science fiction writers, was suddenly real, not in theory, but in data. The discovery was hidden, as such things usually are. Governments took control. Research accelerated under deep secrecy. Within 5 years, the first controlled object, a steel sphere coated in nanotracers, was sent 2 minutes into the past and retrieved. It flickered, hummed, was covered in thin frost, but it arrived. Within 10 years, they were ready to send a human. Her name was Anna Keller, a theoretical physicist turned astronaut, handpicked for her mind and her willingness to vanish. She stepped into the temporal chamber at exactly 12 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, October 24th. Her destination, October 24th, 11:45 Greenwich Mean Time. 15 minutes backward, the countdown began. The machine roared with the sound of spacetime being kneaded like dough. Then, silence. The chamber was empty. At first, it seemed like a failure, but 15 minutes later, Anna reappeared in the observation room, dazed but unharmed. She had done it. She had watched herself enter the machine. She had stood outside the sealed lab and seen the moment from the other side. Time travel worked, and time itself didn't seem to mind. The news eventually leaked, not through official channels, but through fragments, a corrupted data file, a journalist who knew too much, a blurry photo of Anna twice in the same frame. The world panicked, then adapted. Time tourism was the first thing they tried. Millionaires visited ancient Rome, the Library of Alexandria, Woodstock. They returned wide-eyed and changed. Some brought back trinkets. One man brought back a parasite that wiped out a third of the pigeon population in Europe. Time was not without consequences. The first disaster was a small one, a duplication paradox. A woman named Dr. Hayashi traveled back 2 hours to stop a lab explosion. She succeeded, but then there were two of her, both alive, both equally real, both refusing to be the original. When one disappeared a week later, turned to light and ash mid-sentence, researchers realized time was correcting itself, violently. Laws were passed, only forward jumps allowed, no interaction with yourself, no contact with historical figures, no attempts to alter major events. But people always try. A rogue traveler in 2041 attempts to warn the people of Pompeii, only to die in the eruption with them. A team tries to prevent World War I only to find it already rewritten in subtle ways. They return to a future slightly different, slightly colder. There are names they don't remember, a city on the map that wasn't there before. Their own memories no longer match reality. Time travel, it turned out, was less like walking a line and more like wading into a river. Every movement caused ripples, every trip left a stain. Soon, people began to fracture. Time sick, they called it. The result of traveling too often, too far. People who couldn't stop remembering things that never happened. One woman swore she had 3 children, though every record and her body said none. A man aged backward, his body forgetting how old it was. Temporal dementia. Some called it, others called it possession. Eventually, the agency shut down public access. A global moratorium was passed. Only approved missions, only trained operatives. They focused on documenting the past, not changing it, recording facts, verifying lost knowledge, but the temptation remained. In the end, it wasn't war or politics that brought the system down. It was love. A technician named Elias fell in love with a woman he met in 1892. He visited her 3 times. On the 4th, she was gone. The timeline had erased her, correcting the intrusion. But Elias couldn't let go. He began altering his own past, trying to create a future where she existed. With each change, the timeline buckled. Finally, reality snapped. For 7 minutes in April 2058, the sky fractured. Millions saw flashes of a different Earth, dinosaurs on subway tracks, zeppelins in the air, a sun that pulsed blue. Then it ended. The breach sealed itself, but the world never returned to normal. Certain people remembered things others did not. History books disagreed. Calendars changed subtly. Time had begun to bleed. So the machines were sealed, The chambers dismantled, the blueprints locked away, burned, buried beneath layers of encryption and stone. Time would heal, they hoped, given enough patience, enough stillness. Now, only one chamber remains, hidden. It hums quietly in a desert bunker, powered down, watched by a single AI whose only job is to make sure it is never used again. But every night, the AI logs are reading. Just a flicker, a spike in the past. Someone is still traveling,